Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank with Jeff Kolpack. I'm Dom Izzo. Welcome, everyone, to game preview for this spring football season. North Dakota State set to open the 2021 spring portion of its schedule with the Penguins of Youngstown State. They come calling for a Sunday edition of Bison football. I have gone a little through the archives.
Yes.
I cannot find the last Sunday Bison football game. Do you know off the top of your head? Has this happened?
1928? I don't know.
It's just.
What are you insinuating here? That I've been around?
I'm just saying. This is another part of the
old as dirt.
Well, that goes without saying, but it's just part of this another unique, weird anomaly of a season. Kolpack, the Bison are playing football in February on a Sunday,
and teams in the South are getting postponed because of a winter storm.
We knew games were going to get postponed. I wasn't counting on it because of weather.
Not a good sign with teams already using up their bye week, and two of them are NDSU opponents.
Yes. Youngstown State, Illinois State and Missouri State both were scheduled to play on Saturday. Missouri State announced Wednesday that the field could not be cleared off.
Did you see Randy Reinhardt's tweet today? He is the beat writer for Illinois State football for the Bloomington Pantagraph newspaper. And he tweeted a photo of Missouri State being proud of how they cleared off the soccer field in Springfield. And he had the gall to wonder, why can't you clear off a football field?
Yeah, and I don't think that's outlandish to ask. I think that's proper.
You can't tell me there's 7 inches of ice on that field. It's like some sort of hockey rink. You cannot tell me that. Stuff is melting today in Fargo with the sun.
Yeah.
What's the high temperature today in Springfield? I will look it up.
I'll let you go down that road. That's the larger point to what you said is now Illinois State and Missouri State have no wiggle room. If that happens where they have a COVID issue or another weather issue, then those games will not be played. And I know Patty Viverito said it to me on the question I asked about if there would be games that wouldn't happen, then they're fine with that, but that now is on the table.
It is sunny and 31 degrees.
All right, so it's almost almost melting.
That would melt. On an artificial turf?
Well, especially in Missouri. Yeah, you would imagine so. Brock's back was fit to be timed.
High on Saturday is 41. Oh. Play Sunday.
Right? You play the game in Illinois. Move it to normal. And the Missouri Valley was unwilling to do that, which, again, is bizarre. Everything is off this year, Kolpack. So if it's between playing and not, then move the game and play it. You know what I mean? Like, if there's an opportunity to play, you must play.
Because you cannot risk more COVID postponements than we've already seen in the fall with the FBS. If NDSU gets 6 games in, call it a success.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Absolutely.
And the Valley, and that's why Patty Viverito, the commissioner, came out and said, you know what, let's schedule 8 games, and if you get 6, so be it. Then call it good. Because other leagues, the Big Sky, the CAA,
starting at 6,
they're starting at 6.
Yep.
Lone Star, Southland.
Yep. They're going with 6 games. I think the SoCon is going with 8. And they have all their teams are in too. I'll give them that too. The SoCon is full.
Ohio Valley, I think they're 6.
Yeah, and they're playing on Sundays. So that's the other interesting nugget of this, that they're playing most of their games, and they've had a slew of them already canceled because of weather that's happened this week in the South. So it's going to be crazy. We're going to have weeks where we get a slew of cancellations, and here we are with week 1. Let's talk about Youngstown State, because I'll start this question. Who are these guys? You know, that's where I'm at. I don't recognize most of this roster, and I try to follow it as close as anybody.
Oh, here's the most puzzling and really interesting nugget: is they have 11 players who came here at mid-semester, which is last month.
Yeah.
They've been, and I think 1 or 2 are starting.
Yeah. What does that tell you about the
that tells me
there
could be some issues of communication, some issues of knowing what to do. I mean, you talk about NDSU keeping it basic because they don't know what they're going to see in Youngstown.
Right.
Youngstown's got to keep it basic because
they don't know what they're going to do.
They have guys that hardly know the playbook.
Matt Entz told you your question that you asked on Tuesday about quarterback, that they expect to see both Joe Craycraft and Mark Wade. Bison fans will remember both those guys played when the Bison went to Youngstown in November of 2019 after Nathan Mays had one of the most gruesome injuries I can remember.
I would think you'd go with Craycraft because he's got the most experience. He's been around. Wade played in the 4 games as a true freshman last year to preserve his eligibility.
I think he might be the guy down the road, don't you? Wade, that is. I think they at least Bo liked him. I don't know what the new staff thinks of any of these guys.
Well, and they have on the depth chart they have either or.
Yeah,
so
I love
the
that.
guy on top is Joe Craycraft.
Does that matter?
Well, it's kind of a clue, isn't it?
What happened here? I know you tweeted
What
this.
happened to Youngstown?
Yeah, you tweeted this out that Bo Pelini left, got hired, and fired at LSU between the time that Youngstown State has played a football game. A lot has transpired, and yet this program seems like it's taken a major step backwards.
Well, recruiting, that's just the bottom line. I don't think Bo Pelini, as well-liked, supposedly he was in the area. He's from Youngstown. His kids went to Youngstown. He coached. He's a hometown guy.
Yep.
I don't think he recruited all that well. I think that's pretty obvious. They were good in 2016, but they had some transfers come in.
They did.
That were immediate contributors. And you hear about the state of Ohio being such a good, fertile recruiting ground. You hear about Western Pennsylvania with all these tough kids and such a fertile, cool, and productive recruiting ground. I'm not seeing it in Youngstown. I don't see these guys coming in and developing that Western Pennsylvania coal tough culture, the steel town kind of guys. I'm not seeing that in this team. They played NDSU tough. It's not they're horrible by any means, but they've just been an average team.
And they might be bad this year. This not only the spring season, but into the fall as well. I mean, Doug Phillips got hired in February of 2020, and now is finally going to coach a game a full year after taking over. I wonder if they would have tried to play in the fall, how rocky this could have gone for Youngstown State.
Let's talk timeline here, Dom. Let's talk timeline of teams that didn't play this last fall. Some, like NDSU, played one game and developed some practice repetition with that. The teams that aren't playing this spring, and there's several. We'll go Portland State.
Sacramento State.
They might play a game or two, but we don't know that. But if you go all spring and not play, say Portland State.
Or Towson.
Towson will go 651 days or somewhere around that without playing a game before the Bison come rolling in next fall. I don't know if Towson has a game before.
Yeah, I think they have a couple before they play the Bison. But your point is that that's a long time.
They're going 650 days without playing a game. Yeah. Is that going to set you back as a program?
Well, we're going to find out. It's hard not to, and I wanted to get to this maybe later in the pod, but since you bring it up, you asked Jackson Hankey, Bison middle linebacker, about the question when he was asked about in August about not being thrilled about playing 2 football seasons in one. I thought he always gives such good, nuanced answers, and he thought about it, and he said, I was skeptical about them pulling it off in the spring. Now that it's here, we come here to play football. We come here to play games, and that's what we're going to do.
And I think they realize that when you have the absence of games, how much you miss that.
Yeah.
And so Jackson's thought was very analytical when he said it. He goes, I don't know if we're going to pull it off. But now he said that it's here. We're here to play in college to play games. That was his quote. Yep. And so they're all in. These players, there's no question they're all in. And we'll see it long-term ramifications, but all you can do is speculate right now. And I'm a little skeptical if Matt Entz is going to play everybody like he says he is.
Let me get back to that in a second. First, just a wrap on Youngstown. 1 playoff appearance since 2006. That was the national championship game against James Madison. I look here on the game notes. They list off 7 FCS title game appearances, right? 91, 92, 93, 94, 97, 99. That's a long time ago. And I don't know if they'll ever recapture the magic that they had of that decade.
I know, it was almost before you were born, wasn't it?
I'm not that young. My point is I don't know if this is ever going to come back. Doug Phillips has a long, hard road in front of him. Tressel, who's the president, obviously wants Youngstown to be good again in football. They've got that awesome indoor facility. They've got everything you want there. They've got to somehow find a way to start recruiting to get better.
Doug Phillips is not your average coach in his resume when you hire somebody. I would thought maybe they would go for some young up-and-comer somehow, but maybe there wasn't anybody out there. Doug Phillips was a high school administrator for 8 years before getting back into coaching at Cincinnati, and he's been there for 3 years. It's not like he was a coordinator or anything. He was the running backs, tight ends coach, if memory serves me right.
Yep. This is fascinating with a program that has such great lineage, great heritage, that right now I think is in the bottom. There's the top tier and the bottom tier in the Missouri Valley. I think they're in the bottom tier. They're not in the top five. They're not in the top five.
Certainly
in my mind,
right now. You cannot put them anywhere, above the top five.
No.
Certainly, just because of the names in there.
Right.
They're just so few that you recognize.
Really, the line, I know you keep an eye on this, is 23. Bison are a 23-point favorite heading into this game
And
on
speaking
Sunday.
of the line, the offensive line at Youngstown, they have one guy with experience, and he's pretty good, is the Baker guy, right?
Yep.
He's pretty good, but everybody else it's
Becker, you meant. Dan Becker.
Becker,
yep. He's the left tackle.
Everybody else is just so new. How can you come in?
Yeah. Yep. It's going to be a heck of a challenge.
They should
for
be
them.
thankful that it's not going to be a full dome to disrupt the offense.
Well, look at this, by the way. After they play the Bison, right? They have Northern Iowa out at Youngstown. That's a tough game. SIU goes there. That's a tough game. And then at South Dakota State. That's a tough game.
Yeah, the schedule did them no favors. When you have such a new team, they have the tough teams on
right
the
off
front
the
end.
hop. Yeah, I mean, then after that, it's USD. They always play tough. UND goes there at the end of March, and then they at Western, at Mo State. I mean, they could be easily, it could be 0-4, Kolpack, without even blinking.
Well, I think they will be 0-4.
Man, that's just something else with the Penguins. Meanwhile, here we go. Zeb Noland era set to begin for the Bison on Sunday. Long awaited after Trey Lance declaring for the NFL draft. We chatted about this over, I know, the last couple podcasts. What are you most interested in? Is it him? Is it something else? I'm watching this game.
100% number one priority is watching the quarterback because you need a good quarterback play. Obviously, we've seen NDSU over the years. If you're going to make a run at postseason, that's number one. And it's not even close, really.
Yeah.
Not to put all the pressure on the young man,
well,
but he's not that young anymore.
No.
He's 23 years old.
Right. And this is what he's wanted. He wanted to be a starting college quarterback. He thought it would be at Iowa State. That obviously didn't work out. He thought it might be at NDSU a couple of years earlier, and now here he's got a chance, Jeff, to start 2 seasons in 1 calendar year.
And he's really ingrained himself into the Red River Valley and the ways of North Dakota. He's a hunter. Teammates really like him. He didn't come in here and do the do you know who I am? Mm-hmm. I was a 3-star quarterback out of Georgia. I went to Iowa State. I went to the Big 12. Do you know who I am? He didn't do that.
From what Randy Hedberg told me on my show on Thursday, that he can move. I think that's the biggest thing that we are wondering about. He's not Easton Stick. He's not Trey Lance. But he's going to get him out of the pocket. And what Hedberg said to me, and I thought was really interesting, is to let Zeb just wing it. He's really analytical, but you know what? Sometimes we just got to make the play. Just go and throw the football. And there's one thing we know about him. He can throw the ball. He's got a cannon.
So I was doing the Bison starting lineup for our game day section, our Gate City Bank game day section, which will come out on Saturdays. We got that going, man. That's the printed paper.
Yeah,
that's not going away.
Yeah.
And so I replaced Zeb Noland, or Trey Lance with Zeb Noland. Trey Lance in the Central Arkansas game was 6'3", 226. Zeb Noland is 6'2", 224.
Okay. I mean, you're right there. But that's always the question mark with how this offense runs is, can they have a mobile quarterback? Jensen did it. Wentz did it. Stick did it. Lance did it. And that's a key part of that. And Tyler Roll told us on the Zoom media session 2 weeks ago that, yeah, Zeb can get out and we're going to move him. We're going to get him out of the pocket.
He seems a little more like Brock Jensen to me.
I agree. And that worked out okay.
Brock wasn't slow.
No.
Ask Georgia Southern. He outran the secondary.
Yeah. Worked out okay for 3 years with
Brock
him running the show.
Was not the wheels. He didn't have the wheels that Stick has or Trey Lance has, but he was still effective.
But I also think
he's big. Brock was strong.
I think Nolan might have a better arm than Jensen.
I haven't seen him play.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, all we've seen him is in mop-up duty. That's it. I mean,
and warm-ups.
And I watched him, the Illinois State film that we have, and I mean, it's not against chumps in the Big 12 that he played pretty well. He got beat out eventually by Brock Purdy, who Matt Campbell seemed to have picked the right guy in that one.
I want to see the timing routes. I want to see the 15-yard out. I want to see if he can throw across the field like Trey and Carson Wentz could. And Stick was pretty good at it, too.
He's also going to be throwing to some new guys, specifically at wide receiver. Phoenix Sproles is not going to play. Cole Jacob is going to get the start at wide receiver, but there's some other guys there. Braylon Henderson's one. I think Raja Nelson, Bison fans better get used to. Number 17 from Lakeville North, who was the Twin Cities Player of the Year when they won the championship in 2018. You're going to see him on the football field come Sunday. And Jake Lippy's another one, Kolpack, who played the 4 games in 2019. He's already in the 2 right now at wide receiver.
And again, we don't know. We haven't really seen him perform. And Christian Watson's where it starts.
Obviously, you know what Watson is. I'm just saying for the other guys, the new faces that Nolan's going to be throwing to. And obviously, there are 3 others that he's going to be targeting Hunter Lupke, Noah Gindorf, and Josh Babbage.
I want to see Hunter Lupke get the ball in the backfield on a sweep. And
that's probably coming, I'd imagine.
And with a 180-pound corner sitting there waiting for him.
Oh, boy. And Cordell Volson out in front of him blocking the way for a play like that. I'm really intrigued. And obviously, quarterback, you're absolutely right. I'm also looking at the guys who are going to protect him because he's got a new left tackle, he's got a new center, and he's got a new right guard and a new right tackle. They're all new.
Trey Lance had an FBS offensive line in front of him. And not only that, he had a high-end offensive line. Think about this. Dylan Raditz is going to go high in the draft. Carson Schooning was performed above expectations. I'm talking about last year. Zach Johnson in the NFL. Cordell Volson
is going to get a shot. I mean,
and Nash Jensen is a solid road gator, 327 pounds.
Really good left guard. Yep.
That was a high-end FBS offensive line.
Sundell, we have talked about for a while. I got to know his parents. His dad is a Hall of Famer at Northwest Missouri State, which, as you know, that's no chump school down in Division II ranks. He played for Maryville, Missouri. The Spoof Hounds, a really good program there. Super athletic.
How'd you get to know that family?
Through Lynette Johnson, actually. The mom and Lynette were high school, I think, AAU teammates.
The parents just love you.
I don't know.
They just think you're the best.
There's no denying that. But his sister Serena was a top basketball recruit that Jory Collins was trying to get to come here. She ended up going to Kansas State. Long story longer, there's some athleticism in this family, and I'm really curious to see how Sundell, who's never played center before, made that point on Wednesday. He's going to make his debut there on Sunday.
They're a little lighter as an offensive line. When you look at Mason Miller backing up, he's 277. At least that's what he's listed.
He's also 19 years old, and he's on the 2 deep.
I'm just saying they're a little lighter than what they've been. I think Gray Zabel 286. Maybe he's 295 by now. Who knows?
I think they're going to be A-okay on that spot. Defensively, we chatted about the new guys on the back end. Obviously, this will be the second time going around with the linebackers of Kaiser, Hankey, and Cox. Logan McCormick brought up another name, guy we haven't seen play, who came in just a couple months ago from Mankato, and Braden Thomas, Bismarck kid, who Matt Entz said he's playing, and he's going to play a lot.
Yeah, I've heard that he's done some really good things in practice, and they brought him in. Here's a guy that went to Bismarck and Mankato and just developed. Who else did things like that?
Adam Thielen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Guys go there, and maybe they're not the highest profile recruits coming out of high school, but you go to a place like Mankato, and then they develop the way they have, and then you get them on the back end like this.
Let me go back to the point you brought up, and I know Mike asked about this to Entz on Tuesday, about how do you balance playing everybody and trying to win? And this goes back to the point you brought up earlier, that you don't believe that Entz is going to live up to what he said.
Hey, Matt, I'll believe it when I see it there.
Because he listens to this before the game,
I know.
I'm sure.
Well, Craig used to listen to everything.
I know.
He denied everything, but then he'd bring up nuggets that only we said in
Well, he asked Big E where's the belt, so I know he watched. So I tend to agree with you. If it's fourth quarter in a tight game, am I going to see Cole Wisniewski, freshman, out there at linebacker? I don't think so. I think you're going to see Kaiser, Cox, and Hankey out on the field to that point. But I would love to be wrong. I'd love to see if he actually is going to say we're going to play 90 some odd guys.
He kind of backed off a little bit. He said, well, the first couple games, we're going to, they'll see there's some time on special teams.
Yes.
And then maybe we'll put them into the lineup a little more as the season progresses.
But this is the chess match for coaches now. It's got to be the long game, Kolpack. They can't worry about just February. They got to worry about next November, too.
Right. And it goes against the grain and
Absolutely.
the thought process of a coach that you're all about going 1-0.
Yeah.
We're going to go 1-0 this week.
What happens if you go 1-0 and you lose 5 guys and you have 20 some odd football games you anticipate playing over the next 10 months?
Then you may go 0-1.
Yeah, that's the dilemma. And the Bison are not alone. I would say the Bison are probably the best equipped to deal with this. James Madison's in that boat, maybe a couple others. South Dakota State, but that's not.
If their recruiting classes are as good as we thought they were.
And we're going to find out, specifically the last two, the 2018 and the 2019 class, because I think you're going to see them on the field a lot sooner.
I go back to Joe Glenn sitting in a classroom in the Dakota Dome when he was a head coach at South Dakota.
I remember.
Press conference is done, and Nick DeLuca was coming in, and he goes, see that? That's what they look like at the next level. That's what they look like. He goes, NDSU, they get anybody they want.
Yep, that's true.
They get anybody they want.
Our podcast brought to you by Gate City Bank for a better way of life. We appreciate their sponsorship. They'll be sponsoring all of our coverage of this spring season as we look forward to the game. 2:30 kickoff on Sunday at Gate City Bank Field. 9,500 is the attendance. And
what do you think?
I think, after what Matt Larson told Mike, I'll say 85. I'm probably going to go there.
Can 85 make a difference?
I think so.
Can they be loud enough?
I think after seeing whatever it was, 400 in the Dome for that game in October, I think this will seem loud, Kolpack. I think it really will. To answer your question, can they make a difference? Maybe for a team like Youngstown, probably. Maybe not against South Dakota State, but against Youngstown, sure.
And we'll be rocking our pregame show. We're back to business there, brother.
Yeah, it's going to be
our postgame show.
All that good stuff. Well, all the stuff that everyone's come accustomed to, we will have it for you over this next time period. Is there a position or player that you have circled outside to say, I'm
outside of Zeb,
outside of Noland, that you're curious do you want to see on Sunday?
I want to see the depth chart at running back.
Yep,
how that goes.
There.
I mean, we know about Kobe
and Seth Wilson.
Yep, we know about those two. What about Ganella? Is he going to play like we're hearing that he's going to play?
Yeah, they talked up Mr. Ganella quite a bit this week. That's another freshman that got here in June to be seeing the field. That'd be interesting.
The Mostart twins, I want to see if they've got confidence in those kids to play a lot.
I'm on Big E's guy, Brendan Cook. See him back he had a couple game flourish in 2019.
Good call.
Missed the whole season. Now back. Let's see if he is the real deal. Because at that spot, Jeff, Logan McCormick said it on Wednesday. I mean, Wagee, Tony Pierce, who I'm high on. We mentioned Braden Thomas. Cook is there. McCormick himself. Ogbu we haven't even mentioned. They got some dudes at defensive end.
Braden Thomas is 6'3". He's 260 pounds, and he's a DN. Yep. 260.
That's the new look at that spot.
Brendan Cook is listed at 237. He looked bigger than me when he at Delaware.
Yeah.
He looked like he was 250.
He might have slimmed down a little bit. I have to go back and look on that front. But those are some of the guys that I'm keeping an eye on for the game on Sunday. Let's shift gears. We'll chat some hoops here before we do our FCS picks, as we usually do before we wrap today. Obviously, tonight starts the monster part of the Summit League schedule for North Dakota State. The last 4 games are against South Dakota State and South Dakota. The Jackrabbits come here without Noah Friedel, the outstanding Summit League Freshman of the Year last season, who announced earlier this week he will miss the rest of the season to battle some depression issues. He's been an issue for Eric Henderson this entire season. Personally, watching the Jackrabbits play last week in Tulsa, I thought they looked pretty good without him, and they're still loaded, Jeff, even without Friedel.
Well, sometimes maybe you're better without a particular piece that just doesn't fit in.
Addition by subtraction.
Yeah. I don't care how good you are. If you don't flow with the team, sometimes you're better off without that guy.
You were at the game in Sioux Falls in December where the Bison stunk up the place for a while, and yet nearly won that game in Sioux Falls.
The Jacks weren't anything special either that night. Douglas Wilson was out. That's a big deal. He's the best big man in the conference. I don't think there's any question about that.
Dentlinger's good. Shireman's good. Those are going to be handles for the Bison the next 2 nights.
Dentlinger's been inconsistent. He's been better of late. And if he goes off for 16 points and 12 rebounds, the Bison could be in trouble.
It's got to be big for Cruiser. Harden Hayes is back after this bye week, which came, it looks like what Dave Richmond said, at just at the right time.
Grant Nelson's a different player than he was in December.
Absolutely. That was my next point. Nelson was still kind of figuring his way out. I think that was game 4 or 5 for the Bison at that point. Now he's become a reliable dude.
He was pass first. He just wasn't confident enough to take the ball to the hoop. That's really changed.
With what happened in Grand Forks last weekend, now it's a 3-way tie. The Bison split this weekend. They're in good shape for at least the 2 seed, you'd imagine, heading into Sioux Falls in a couple weeks.
Yeah, but you got to play down in South Dakota.
Then you got to go to Vermilion. So you think you have to sweep?
I think you got to win 3 out of 4, don't you?
To be with either the one or the 2, yes.
But South Dakota's got Oral Roberts.
Yep.
That's no gimme at all. Oral's coming on. They're tough.
Oral Roberts split in Fargo, and they just split with the Jackrabbits.
Ace was what is he scoring, 50 a game these days, or what?
He's really good. With O'Banner there, they're both just really, really good players. The fight for the seeding is just going to be fascinating over the next 2 weeks.
I'll be interested to see if the Bison ever play Oral in the Summit Tournament, how they would attack that team defensively.
They would do it differently, obviously, than what they did the last time. And
I think that's a reason they didn't do it this time around.
Maybe.
Like why show your hand?
Yeah. The news also that Rocky Cruiser apparently will be back next year makes this team that more formidable. That, in my mind, they have to go to the top as maybe the favorite in the league next year.
I think, and maybe you'll shoot me for this, I think they're more entertaining to watch this year than they were last year.
Yep. I don't argue there.
There's more pieces around it.
Edie's good. Griesel's really turned into a nice player. Harden Hayes is blossoming. We've talked extensively about what Grant Nelson can do, and obviously Cruiser's playing at another level.
Well, last year you had Shaheed and Ward, and Cruiser wasn't what he is now.
Nope, he was definitely the third wheel of that. There's no doubt about it.
Samuelson was a good shooter, but he wasn't Harden Hayes by any means.
Even when Jackson Notek has come in and given them minutes off the bench this year, he's been good on that front. Jory Collins told me Emily Dietz plans on coming back next year. That's a big deal as well for a Bison team that will get Marie Olson back. And Collins pointed her out specifically on Tuesday, saying, we needed her for this weekend to match up with South Dakota State.
Yeah, South Dakota State's got that size, and it's certainly on the
Selland
perimeter.
And Burkhardt, yep.
What they're missing with Marie Olson is a player who can step out and hit the 3. Now, she was still trying to find her way in December. That's so unfortunate. So I really don't know how good she can be or is.
We know how good South Dakota State is. Yes. They've won 14 in a row. The last time they lost to the Bison was 2015. I think SDSU is still going to sweep this weekend. I am curious how the games are going to go, Jeff, to see. And Collins admitted that. He said, we know people on the outside are going to say, well, if they got beat by 20, they still got a long ways to go.
And I don't think you're going to see, just like we talked about Dave and his defense on Oral Roberts, I don't think you're going to see NDSU do anything funky.
Yeah.
You kind of save that for when you need it in the tournament.
Yep, I agree on that. Should we do some picks before we wrap? There are still some games happening. There's still, I think, 14 some odd games that we don't going to do all of them. We can do some of the Valley games.
Let's do 5.
You want to do 5? All right. Well, let's do the game tonight. You're going to so you're going to be at the shack. Your laptop will have SDSU and Northern Iowa.
I'm not going to comment on that.
7 o'clock tonight. That's the first game of the Valley season. This has always been a tough one, and the Panthers have beaten the Jacks. They beat them in the playoffs in Brookings. That was the last time South Dakota State played a football game in December of 2019.
South Dakota State had some departures. They got Pierce Strong, but quarterback, what?
I'm assuming we're going to see Jabari Gibbs start tonight.
But boy, it's not like State came out and said he's our guy.
I don't know if he's just playing around with us here.
I'm still going with Northern Iowa at home.
Ooh,
I am.
Wow.
They lost a ton too.
They did.
But they have their quarterback. He's the guy, McIlvain. And they just seem to find some athletes. They do.
All right. I like SDSU. I think it's close.
We disagree right off the bat.
I think 23-20 SDSU wins that game tonight, which will be on ESPN+. I know a lot of people are interested in what happens Grand Forks tomorrow. UND makes its Missouri Valley Conference debut as they welcome in Southern Illinois. The Salukis played a game in October. They beat SEMO in that. They bring almost everybody back. Javon Williams is back, the outstanding tailback who was all Missouri Valley first team in 2019. I think SIU wins big. I don't think this game's relatively close tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think UND has an answer for John Williams. He's just so big and strong, and he's tough. He's tough to bring down. It's UND hasn't played. Again, that game in the fall is a big deal.
I think so too. The fact they got out there and played.
Yep.
I don't. Plus, and you were there. I know you're going to test your memory on this. 2008 at Youngstown State, the Bison first game in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. And what did Craig Bowles say after the game? That was a butt whooping because Youngstown ran all over him. That was a whole new level of football, and that's what UND, I think, is going to experience
And the
now.
Same deal when they played at Northern Iowa for the first time.
Yep.
Northern Iowa had that defensive end. What was his name again?
James Ruffin.
Yep. He comes into the post game. He looks like he's 6'6", 290.
Yep.
And Craig, kind of what Joe Glenn did to Nick DeLuca, Craig kind of said, we got to look like that.
Oh, man. Does Morehead State hang within 40 of James Madison tomorrow?
Yeah, I think they hang within 40.
Okay.
Maybe 35.
James Madison should win that game. Cole Johnson is now the starting quarterback of the Dukes, guy who's highly recruited, has waited his time behind Ben DiNucci, and now he'll be the starter for Kurt Cignetti.
JMU and NDSU have similarities, and they have veteran quarterbacks who have yet to really prove themselves for an entire year.
Lastly, should we do one more here? I got, how about Samford and East Tennessee State?
Oh, for God's sakes.
Want to take a stab?
No.
I'll go with Samford.
Okay.
I like their team on that front. Just a slew of games this weekend, a bunch more supposedly next weekend. The Big Sky will start its schedule. The CAA will start its schedule, so more games coming. We got a huge day of coverage. Look for our game day section of the forum tomorrow on Saturday, and then on Sunday, our Bison pregame show is live, 11 a.m. on WDAY Extra, also at inforum.com. We'll have our live game blog up at like 1:30, I'd imagine, on Sunday afternoon from inside the
Around
dome.
2.
Or 2
Around
o'clock.
2, yeah.
And kickoff at 2:30, and then, of course, we'll be back to wrap the game at inforum.com. So football season is here. Let's rock and roll. And, of course, we'll have full coverage of the basketball games happening as well. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest edition of the Bison, of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you, I got so many things, the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.